Well, hello and welcome. And obviously, we are looking at the limited voter registration exercise, which is ended with some challenges. And I remember when this issue came, I said, you know what, it didn't look like it's going to be a one-show event. 21st century is nearly, what, about 15 years old? And Ghana is saying that if you turn 18, you are unable to walk to a table, put your fingerprint on a machine and leave your name there, pick up a card, and when it's time to vote, you can just join it. As simple as it is and as simple as it should do, it never happened so. We have issues of people who are not 18, issues of people who are suspected to be from other countries, and issues of machines breaking down, not enough machines. Is it acceptable at all? But this is where we are. Article 42 of the Constitution mandates everybody that, look, it is your right to get registered so that you can vote in elections and referenda in the country so far as you're over 18 and of a sound mind. Here we are today to find out what's going to happen next, and even if it was necessary as to what happened. My name is Nana Sakwao. I do Masahene and your host of PM Express. I'm going to take a break. When I come back, I'm going to introduce my guest. Don't move. Thank you very much for staying. And as I've already told you about, the discussion is on the challenges that came up with regards to the limited voter registration, i.e. if you're 18 and just want to put your name down, or if you've never voted and you want to vote, this was your chance. It ended on Sunday with some people saying they were not able to get on there. With me in the studio as my brother, who I'm going to have to find Ambantem, because it's his first time on the show, Sami Uku, who's a MPP National Youth Organizer. Sami, you're welcome.
Thank you. And surely that language will be poor.
Joining us on the phone will be Dr. Bosman Asari, who's a political science lecturer, University of Ghana. Also, Mr. Kofi Adams of the NDC general, I think, organizer. He will also join us on the phone. And we had a student leader who was supposed to join us, and maybe he will join us while the show goes on, and he will come and tell us what the challenges which the students face. But I'll start with Sami. Sami, you're welcome once again.
Thank you, Nana.
The nation, I don't want us to start with the political side on it, but let's just, look on the patriotic, side of it. I mean, how difficult is it for a country, in the 21st century to just collect data of people who've turned 18 or people who've never voted, and then you put your name down and you may even decide to vote or not to vote? I mean, how difficult should that be? I mean, at which point do we grow out of this so that, anybody can just write their names down in peace?
I mean, thank you, and good evening to your cherished viewers. I'm sure this question is a two-pronged one. One, you are embarrassed by the situation we find ourselves in, that because listening to your narrative and the preamble, you think that this should be a normal exercise where you turn 18, you make yourself available, you go to register, you pick up your card. That's supposed to be the ideal situation and the real life situation. I'm sure you are comparing this to what pertains in other jurisdictions. For instance, even in Belgium, they don't have polling agents for political parties on the day of voting. You'll be there and the commission will write to you, or if you may want to volunteer to be an agent. So you're just there to just observe the exercise. But here it's a serious matter, it's a real deal. Now, let's come some few steps backwards. It's supposed to be a normal exercise, where Ghanaians who have attained the age of 18 makes themselves available. You go through the process of getting yourself on the electoral roll. But it hasn't been the case over the past few years.
Let me just acknowledge that Mr. Kofi Adams is now joining us. Kofi, you're welcome. Hello.
Thank you and good evening.
Good evening, good evening. I have Sami in the studio, so I'm sure we'll all be having a good conversation. Sami, sorry.
So, as a country, I think we should develop our electoral system to a point where, regardless of whatever is happening, the system can run its course. It hasn't been a pleasant experience over the past few years for people who have attained the age of 18 to be able to have that excitement in mind and at heart that, look, finally I'm going to get a voter's ID that makes me part of the decision-making process. I think this last exercise to many watchers and to many political observers has been a bit chaotic. And the publicity of it didn't go down too well. For instance, you had the two major political parties, the NPP and the NDC, joining to even advertise and, you know, publicize the event. It's not our job. It's not the job of the NDC nor the NPP. But candidates and campaign teams of both parties had to quickly ensure that we more or less up the tempo for people to know that there's an impending exercise. The Electoral Commission, for some of us, its publicity was low. Now you also go to at the core of this exercise were the fresh registrants, or first-time voters, as people may say. Because the others are few exceptions, those who are not available the last time when we were registering, but those that the exercise was designed for them, these were those who had attained the age of 18 and people were going to register for the first time. These were teens and early 20s. So if you have many of these people disenfranchised, then there's a problem with the system. And it's not that they did not make an effort. In several instances, they made the effort. If you check the KNUST like this, the center was sited outside campus at Eduase. If you check the University of Ghana, for the first 6 days of the exercise, they only had one registration center, one, to cater for thousands of students, in excess of 8,000, 9,000. If you check the University of Cape Coast, for instance, the center, I'm told, and stand to be corrected, was sited outside campus. If you check the University of Education, whenever, they only had one center on campus. The Accra Polytechnic had the first phase of it, they had one center on campus, and the next phase was moved out. So the very people that we designed the exercise for them were not able to benefit from it substantially.
Let me bring Kofi in. Hello, Kofi. Hello, Kofi.
Hello.
Yeah. Kofi, what did you find challenging with regards to this, trying to get new 18-year-olds into our decision-making as a nation?
Thank you for the opportunity. The challenge for us is not about the centers. It's more about identification to be able to register. That's what those who have turned 18, just 18 face. But let me say and correct this impression. The exercise was not designed for those who just turned 18. The exercise was designed for those who have not had the opportunity to be on the voters register to be captured from 2012 till now. Whether you are 90 years or just turned 18. It's for all Ghanaians and who have not had the opportunity to register before, who this exercise was designed for.
Okay, I think,
those who just turned 18 would have been doing it for the very first time. But it was not an exercise that was designed for them only. If you ask what specific problem I witnessed, for those who have just turned 18, apart from either a national ID, passport, or for a few who may have driving license, majority do not have these documents. They do not have passports, they don't have driving license, and the national ID is also not available. And so the only other way for them to be identified was to provide two persons who previously have registered to attest to them to be able to register. So what it meant was that in many of the centers, if you were just turning 18 years and you have to go and register, you must be working with two other persons who are registered voters already to come and attest for you, because we don't have national ID card.
Yeah.
The person has not got passport. He's also not got driving license. And because he has not registered before, he has no old voter ID card to present as evidence of truly being Ghanaian. So this was one big challenge that the just turned 18 or those who were 19 years old really faced away from our. As for the tertiary campuses, it was a bit okay because quite a lot of them had passports. But when you go to our villages, our other communities, it was really very difficult. They have to walk distances with two persons or walk to a registration center only to be turned away because they didn't have any of the form of identification, and they did not also come with two people to be able to attest to them in order that they are able to register. So I believe one thing is clear, that as a country, we must work on the national ID issues so that everybody who qualifies for it will have it, and therefore you don't need to carry people along to go and attest for you in future. Or we may have to relax the qualification for the just 18 if we don't do national ID, because it was really a burden.
I don't know if it's an unfair question I asked Sammy in the beginning, is that, and I'm looking about the pride and maybe the shame that, if the 21st century indeed is now 15, 16 years old, and Ghana cannot just identify an average 18-year-old, it's a bit of a shame and an indictment on all of us.
I don't think so. It's difficult to just look at somebody's face and say you are a minor. Unfortunately, especially if you don't live in the community with the person, you were not there when the child was born, and the parents walk up and tell you that my child is 18 and therefore qualifies to register. It becomes very difficult for you, without any other contrary evidence, to stop the person. You can only challenge. And sometimes even when you challenge, if you don't get the records of the person, maybe either the NHIS records or the BEC examination entry forms records and so on and so forth, to be able to present that as a person's true date of birth against what he or she
is that not the embarrassment? I mean, every day, yes.
Nana, the difficulty is that gradually we are beginning to become a country that people always want to lie their way to whatever it is that they want. So you are teaching a child who is yet to be 18, you are presenting the child as older than 18. So already you are telling the child to lie. And that could even affect that child in future. I know persons, as a result of their bid to register in 2012, they have lost an opportunity to be recruited into the armed forces. Because if you were registered in 2012, what it meant is that by today, you would have been a certain age, because they will add 18 plus from that time to now, and that will disqualify you from entering into the services. So the lie that the parent told some time ago has affected the child now in going into a service. So sometimes we need to be careful when we are telling lies for one form of document or the other.
Okay, Kofi, hold on 1 second. Joining me in the studio now is Jabba Abu Bonsra, who's a coordinating secretary for USAG.
Yeah.
So he's out there with the students, and so he's going to tell us the student perspective of what happened. But just to buttress Kofi's IDs, that we have multiple IDs. So I mean, you can register and be 18, you'll be in a bank, you'll be 23, you'll be in a hospital and 60, and because they are not linked, you can tell a lie at every given time and go scot-free. But Jabba, what was the challenges that you faced in the tertiary institutions?
Good evening.
Brief comment, and then I'll go to break and come back to you.
Okay. Actually, most of the students were eager to register. Some could queue as early as 5:30 a.m., but when it's 6 p.m., the machine from the EC, it's timed, and at 6 p.m. they can't register anyone after that. So most of the students were unable to be captured at the end of the entire...
Whether you're in the queue or not.
Whether you're in the queue or not.
Well, I'm going to take a break here, but let me remind you, if you are a GT Trust, Guarantee Trust Bank customer, do you know that you can buy airtime from the convenience of your own home or office using the GT Top-Up service by dialing the short code *737#. Guarantee Trust Bank is rewarding customers who are yet to activate the GT Top-Up service from Monday 15th February to 14th May 2016. The first 20 customers who activate the service daily and buy a minimum of 20 Ghana Cedi airtime on any network will be rewarded 5 Ghana Cedis worth of airtime. To activate the GT Top-Up service, just dial *737# on your mobile phone, re-enter your GT Bank account number. You're then required to key in a 4-digit secret PIN to confirm and complete the activation process. GT Top-Up is the most efficient and reliable means to buy airtime for yourselves, family, friends, anywhere and anytime. The short code is *737#. Remember, terms and conditions apply. GT Trust Bank, wouldn't you rather bank with us? PM Express, wouldn't you want us? Stay tuned, coming back. Much for staying, and we are looking at some of the challenges that went on with regards to the limited voter registration exercise that's just ended. With me in the studio, Samia Wuku, I have Joseph Abu Bonsra, who's Jabba, affectionately known as Jabba, and then on the phone is Kofi Adams, who's the NDC national organizer. But let me start with you, Jabba. I mean, so have you been assured of a new date when the exercise will start again?
The EC has been petitioned, but we are just waiting for a response from the EC. The leadership of University of Ghana that's in the SRC, had to petition the EC, and as it stands now, we've not had any confirmation or anything from the EC to stand on that.
I mean, how stressful? Because I hear you guys used to be in the queue for hours.
You know, from the beginning of the entire process, as in it started on the 28th of April, right from the first day, queued as early as 3:30, some as early as 5:30. They get there, and such people are unable to register. They come back the following day.
There are people already...
because there had been people there a day before, so they had to go back and return the following day to register, and it became a whole lot of hell to them.
Safiba, is it law to stop somebody from registering? Because I mean, if you look at the Constitution, I mean, everybody, it's a right that if you turn 18, you have to get registered and vote. So
yeah, sure, Nana. But let me also reiterate that at the core, at the heart of this whole exercise, were people who are just attaining the age of 18 and potentially fresh voters or fresh registrants. As I maintain, the others are very insignificant to the numbers, because everybody knows you are talking about Ghanaians who have attained the age of 18, or those who have attained the age of 18 within the past 3 to 4 years. So I still maintain, and that's the position of the MPP's youth wing, that those who were substantially disqualified from this process were those who mattered most, especially the student. You cannot have people joining the queue from morning till evening, and at 6 p.m. and the machine shuts down. That's how it's been programmed, that at 6 p.m. it shuts down, so you cannot register anybody. I happened to tour the University of Ghana campus at the same time that other student leaders were also touring with Dr. Baumia. And one student made an instructive comment. He said, look, we have an exam to write. We've been in the queue since 4 a.m. And Dr. Bamia, we are still here. It's 1 p.m. You people should do something about it. Unfortunately for us, we don't have the mandate. We wish we could help. And we also had to help push for a case. Because you see, I'm surprised about the hypocritical attitude of other political watchers and actors as far as getting many of our students, many of our youth to be part of the decision-making process. You travel elsewhere and you have 19, 20, 21-year-old people seriously engaged in the politics of their country. Why? Because they believe that's the future of the country. But here, nobody really cares about those we say they are the future leaders. So if at the age of 18, the person did not get the opportunity to get himself captured in the electoral register, and people believe it is okay, it is normal, that cannot be normal. That is practical disenfranchisement of the people. Now, back to your question that, you know, the whole process, how it's been handled and all. For me, I think that the absence of a national ID, just as you stated, is a major issue. For the past 8 years of this government, they haven't been able to issue a national ID. The NPP started the process till we exited in 2008, when Professor Kenatifa was in charge of the national identification. Since then, you've had in and out Professor Ade and all those, they've come in and left. But it is sad, because if you travel out of this country, just at the entry point of a country in Europe or North America, the moment they capture your date of birth and name in the system, wherever you are going or roaming in that country, you cannot escape the big guys watching you. But here, you need to have a Senate card, you need to have a health insurance card, you need to have a voter's ID. So it becomes chaotic. So the love and sometimes the craze for many people even going for this voter's ID, they say that's their first national ID that they are getting. And some will even tell you, it might not necessarily be for voting purposes, but for mobile money, for this, for that. So most of them, as they also go in the course of the year, then they also begin to have that inner feeling that, oh, we can also use it to vote, change a government or maintain a government. But for me, for us as political actors, I strongly believe that we haven't been fair to the future generation of our country. I don't think so, because for somebody like my brother seated here, and thousands, hundreds and thousands of their colleagues, because I suspect not less than 200 to 300,000 might have been disenfranchised in the process. Because if Legon alone, you're counting close to 10,000, just count the public universities, count the technics, count the teacher training and nursing training. And the figures
what
are
numbers
huge.
do you think Legon missed
quite
out?
huge.
Those in the queue were about 520
Who couldn't get registered?
couldn't get registered. But we have
As at the last day
of
registering.
Yeah, of registering. And we made a survey of about 7,230 people who were supposed to be captured at the end of the entire process. But at the end of
Nationwide or Legon?
No, Legon itself. But at the end of the entire process, we realized they were able to capture about 1,563. So, meaning the huge number
whole
of people.
7 days, they captured
the 10
10
days.
days.
They captured only 1,563.
Kofi, have I got you?
Yeah, thank you again for the opportunity. You see, in discussing matters like this, you need to deal with empirical evidence. It is true that you may have a number of students on campus, but it is not all who really wanted to be registered on campus. Students who traveled to as far as Tema, Katamanso, some came to Ladade Kotopom and to register, because that is where they actually hail from, even though they are resident on campus. So you must not conclude that because you have these numbers, and this is actually that came out of the centers on campus, it means that that is the only number that could register out of the total number. When you do so, you will be spreading false information.
Okay, Kofi, let me agree with you. But I mean, was it not obvious that there were just not enough registration material or centers for the population they anticipated?
I think there were not enough centers, and that we admit, and it escaped all of us. The political parties had access to what we call the movement plans of the Electoral Commission for the registration. Indeed, it escaped all of us that places like Legon, KNUST, UCC, UEW, and the various tertiary campuses must be given some special attention. It did escape all of us. And in the course of the exercise, when we all identified it through our monitoring exercise, we drew the attention of the Electoral Commission, and some remedial measures were put in place. Some more centers were established and more machines were added. So it is not something that I think that we should just push every blame on just one institution. It did escape all of us.
Okay, let me bring...
On the matter of people being engaged in one assignment or the other, Chief, for every moment, you will have somebody doing one thing or the other. Business people will tell you, maybe as a result of the season that we find ourselves, they have to travel to some part of Asia and other things. And so they were not available. Students will tell you they are also writing exams. Farmers will tell you, because of the nature of the season, it has just started raining. If you go to the northern part of our country, they will tell you to move to the farmlands. And they were nowhere near the town areas to be captured. So people will be somewhere for one reason or the other. I believe that what we will be doing as political parties moving on is to quickly conclude the discussions on the modalities for continuous registration, so that persons who were not captured in this limited registration exercise will exploit that opportunity to be captured through the continuous registration exercise, which will be available to them.
So let me bring Sami in here. Sami, I think it was discussed at IPAC. You were shown the movement, but you probably escaped everybody.
I mean, first of all, nobody can say that he escaped everybody. The NPP, I think at every point, we've raised issues about even the EC's conduct. And we were clear in our minds that if you're going to embark on such an exercise, even not all modalities were discussed at IPAC, according to our people who were there, who were subsequently briefed. Because you make projections. You know the numbers in a particular area. It's based on that you are assigning a set of machines or machine. Because when the EC said we're going to have it in 3,000 electoral areas, it presupposes that he has done his own work well. He's done his checks, the movement and all. But I cannot understand, for a simple reason, that you have a place that you're likely to have 8,000 people.
No, sorry, but that's why you should have kicked off, because you are the youth organizer.
Yes.
So you should have said, no.
Well, that is when the moment it started, we started raising the issues. It took the EC 5 days to even attempt to respond to some of the issues. KNUST was never resolved.
The plan had already been executed.
Yeah, but the plan, you cannot. The plan was not cast in stone, because once you were able to supply some of the centers with additional machines, then it was clear that you also had machines there that you could support the exercise with. That's what I'm saying. Let's not lose the essence of the exercise. The essence was to primarily get fresh registrants. And these registrants were people who were either 16 years in 2012, so could not be registered, or who were out of the country. But most of them were people who are just attained 18, or people who were about 20 to 21. Because it's either you were 17, 16 in 2012, so you could not be registered, or you've just attained 18 or a little over 18. So it was a poor job. But interesting, the EC, apart from its, the problems we've had with the low, in some instances, low turnout, I said it had to take political parties, Nana, to help publicize the exercise. The NDC and the NPP. But that's not supposed to be our job. The EC went to Parliament with a budget. You've gotten a budget to support your activities. It shouldn't lie on multimedia or political parties to publicize it for you. It's part of your, your corporate social responsibility if you may want to help. But any extra thing will have to be something supported by the budget that the EC took. And again, the EC, 2 days before the exercise, the subject that dominated the headlines were not the limited registration exercise. It was the EC's logo. And somebody saying that we saw it, we liked it, we loved it, we used it. Meanwhile, your core job that you were supposed to do, getting people to move to the registration centers, to get themselves captured and get themselves enrolled on the electoral, there was complete dereliction of duty. As for security matters, I'm sure we'll come there later.
Jabba, why did some of you go to the nearest registration center to go and try your luck there? Why did it have to be queue up from 5 a.m. to 6 p.m.? Why don't you just hop in a trotro and go to the next one and register?
We should bear in mind it's a university community, and as such, most students would want to be comfortable on their campus, and also for convenience sake, they would want to be on campus. So we initially had that engagement with most of the students, and their issue was that they felt it would be safe on campus during the 2016 election, because the tension out there, it's not favorable for students. So the intention was just to register on campus and be comfortable with the process itself and be convenient.
Kofi?
Well, I would want to add something to what Mr. Adam said. Mr. Adam said he believes most of the students registered not necessarily for, no, that was from Mr. Oku, not necessarily for voting, yes, for the ID. And also, he made he said his was in regards to the survey we made, that 7,000 people, we also did a plus or minus that admittedly about 2,000 people might have gone home to register. So what happens to the 3,000 left? Where were they captured? We want all those people to be captured in the register, because we can't deliberately disenfranchise those people. It can't be done, and it can't happen.
Hello, Kofi.
Hello.
The ECC.
The point I'm trying to raise is that I will accept the fact that I think as political parties we didn't think that enough sense were provided. But we must also realize that registering to vote is not compulsory. There was an interview that was conducted on campus. I don't know whether it was Joby News or one of the stations. And they interviewed about 6 students, 4 of whom said they are 21 years old now. They were there in 2014, and they saw nothing about registration, so they don't want to register, and they will not also register now. So if you count all these persons and add them up that they did not register all of them, you may be making a mistake. I heard the director of EC who said at the close of registration on Sunday, 6 p.m., they counted the number of persons who were still in the queue. If you add all that up, you get, for the 3 centers that were on campus, you got a figure 30. These were people who were willing to register and were in the queue. When they counted them, they were 70. They took down, I think, their names or numbers and have forwarded to management for a decision to be taken on that. But for me, the solution to this whole problem is working on the continuous registration project to make sure that it is available for people who turn 18 or who want to register at any time to walk to the district electoral office and get their names captured. That is the way to solving the problem. But if we start making arguments that, we have this number of persons here and all of them were not registered, every community will have that argument to make, that there are people who were not registered. Nana, if you go to your...
Jabba is saying they were... Kofi Jabba is saying that they were in the queue.
They were in the queue.
Kofi Jabba is talking about those in the queue, not those who are at home and may have changed their mind. These are the people who literally, physically were present.
I am talking about young people. I am talking about young people in your community who, for one reason or the other, would not have, because they have to move a certain distance. Don't forget that registration was done at centers, not at polling stations. Even in polling stations, there are a number of communities that makes up polling station in some areas. So if you go to some of the rural constituencies, you may be counting about 10 settlements that makes up a polling station. So you can imagine when you say a center, they have to travel long distances to be able to do so.
Kofi, please let me fast forward. Let me fast forward to continue.
My last point, so that you can let me go. The Electoral Commission, before this exercise, had an estimated figure they intended capturing. Per the provisional figures that I have, based on what I've collected from the regions, they've been able to register close to 1.1 plus million, which is about the figure they anticipated to register. So what it means, therefore, is that we are about 95, 96 plus % successful. And in every project of this nature, you don't really, the wish is to hit 100%, but you don't normally be able to hit the 100%. So let's work on the continuous registration. Let that work, and all these other persons will be captured. Let's look at ways to make sure that forms of identification becomes easier for those who would have just turned 18 through the working on the national.
Kofi, let me bring Sami in here. Sami, with regards to continuous registration, I mean, would you then have to designate a man to stand there 24/7?
I'm a bit surprised about the figures being churned out by Mr. Adams. Is that from where they say they have figures of about 1.1 million? That's a bit amazing. That's interesting. Nonetheless, the USAG executive seated next to me is talking about over 500 of his colleagues. Practically disenfranchised. Mr. Adams is saying they said they counted 30. I mean, let's not try to ridicule or mock the situation, because are being prevented from being part of the decision-making process. I don't want to suggest that all those who are disenfranchised are NPP people or people who are potentially going to vote for the opposition. There are some who are obviously going to vote for the ruling party as well. But that is not even at the heart of it. At the heart of democracy is choice. The heart of it is for the person to be able to express his wishes through the ballot. So if the person is not being given that fundamental right that the Constitution gives him, then that body that is supposed to help him or facilitate that right has caused great injustice.
Could you saying that you can't get 100% registration?
Yeah, but that's possible. I mean, that's true. But then, when the person makes an effort, the person should not be practically disenfranchised. This is different from somebody that a radio station will speak to and say, oh, I don't want to go near the process. But I'm talking about people who made the effort. One point, I heard Dr. Agridako, a political scientist, I think somewhere last week, also complaining about the situation on the campuses. I've heard several lecturers also complaining about it. So it's totally different from somebody who is saying, oh, I'm not interested in it. I'm talking about people who made the effort. People who had to stand in the queue for 8 hours, still had no result. And people who were in the queue when the curtains, the iron curtains were shut before them.
Do you find
on the issue of the continuous registration, you know, that's a different exercise, because with the continuous registration, it doesn't take place at the polling centers. It takes place at the offices of the EC. So you're asking that the EC should give a timetable throughout to the end of till about a month or two to the election. Well, the Supreme Court in its declaration said at least about 3 months to the conduct of polls, the political parties must have the electoral register for them to be able to verify, challenge, or whatsoever, to be able to make use of it. Now, we are entering June. So you have June, July, August, September. In fact, June, July, practically August, because September, October, you only have June, July. That's the point. Because August, September, October, first week of November, you are voting. So we are in a difficulty. And I don't want to go by the figures Mr. Adams is bandying about. I mean, I'm sure they have. And it will be strange to see how their figures tally with that of the EC. Because lately there seems to be lots of coincidence between the figures the NDC will bring and that of the EC.
The other thing is, number one, do you find the EC's posture too abrupt? And
I find their posture a bit arrogant and intransigent. I say this because, look, you have a referee because there are football teams playing. If there are no teams, you can't have a referee.
But they can never please.
You cannot please everybody. But how come the political actors in Nigeria were able to believe in the Electoral Commissioner and the commission, the INEC led by Professor Jega? In fact, before Professor Jega, Ghana had always scored high marks in as far as its Electoral Commission was concerned. And we never credited the Nigerian democracy as anything meaningful. But Nigeria 2015, in fact, climbed several steps higher than that of Ghana.
But I would say the NPP would always say no. As soon as the EC says good morning, it's like no. Before you even say anything, no.
I mean, the position is bad. I'll give you a typical example. The EC unilaterally said they were forming a steering committee. That was not discussed at IPAC. In fact, the political parties at IPAC subsequently said, look, we're kept in the dark. And I tell you why. You form a steering committee, and he said, oh, you are drawing people from the National Service Scheme to be electoral officers. The head of the National Service Secretariat is an appointee of the ruling party who contested in a parliamentary primaries. The youth organizer of the ruling party is a board member of the National Service Scheme. The deputy national youth organizer of the ruling party is a board member of the National Service Scheme. How then can you tell me the process will be that fair and transparent in even getting the service personnel to supply the Electoral Commission? Then the Electoral Commission moves a step in a ridiculous manner, take a deputy director of international affairs for the ruling party as a rep for the National Service Secretariat.
Let me take a break. And then, Kofi, when I come back, I'll come to you because the NDC has also got a posture. Here I've lost Kofi. Then I'm not even going to drop that question. It will not be fair. So let me take a quick break. And when I come back, we'll continue. Of your messages quickly. Listen, says, good evening, Nana. Registration at the Electoral Commission District Office for the EC and the NDC to cook figures for us? No way. Any registration should be done in the open for all of us to see. Gilbert Yao, Elembele constituency. This one says, let me skip it and let me go here. It says, Nana, they extend the date to make sure all qualifying people have their names on the voter register. EC may likely face the full rigor of the law for disenfranchising people who qualify to register. The political parties should bear in mind that busing people to registration centers do not guarantee any votes for them. This is Sumaila in Sambo. Let me go straight to the phone and speak to Dr. Bosman Asari, who is a political science lecturer, University of Ghana. Dr. Asari, do I have you? Hello, Dr. Asari. Good evening. And thank you very much once again. Doc, just quick, a brief one. The registration had ended, and there are lots of new entrants, who are saying, look, we didn't get the opportunity to. I mean, what do you say to that?
Good evening again.
Good evening.
I think, Ghana is increasingly becoming a society where deliberately we don't want to do things right. Ideally, in a well-functioning society, we should expect that if even you are turning 18 on the day before the voting, mechanisms must be put in place for you to take part in the process. But we know in Ghana, our problem has always been resources. Our problem has always been some individuals trying to take advantage of the system. So we put structures in place, we spend a lot of money, and at the end of the day, we are not able to get quality results. We've all been hearing what has been happening on our various university campuses, the University of Ghana, where I work at especially. We know the numbers. We are looking at about 7,000-8,000 people to register, but the EC was not able to put the number of centers together and other things that had to be done to be able to capture all these individuals. I think one of your panelists made a point that people do not register in some of these exercises specifically to vote. They need that identification for other purposes, mobile money, and other relevant activities. So I think that although the exercise is over the EC should be looking at doing whatever is necessary, whatever is proper, so that anyone who made him or herself available to take part in the process, but because of the time constraint could not be part of it, should be given the chance. So I think that there shouldn't be any extension nationwide. Some specific places should be identified so that those individuals will have their concerns addressed.
Doc, thank you very much for that input. Thank you so much. Let me come to Sami. Sami was saying that's right. You agree that it shouldn't be a nationwide thing again. We should be targeted.
I agree. I'm sure if they do some analysis of the processes, they will know that there were areas that obviously you could see people were practically disenfranchised. Instead of opening up nationwide, where some centers will record about 20 a day, 50, this one, it was different. They were in the queue, hundreds of people. Due to a technical, administrative, or whatever, 6 p.m., they draw the curtains. They don't get the opportunity. So I agree with the renowned political science lecturer that something must be done about it. And I will fall for the idea of opening it up, especially at the educational centers, because that's where you could see people massing up. And, my brother from the NDC was trying to draw an interesting analogy that, not just on the campuses, in the communities as well. But you didn't see most of these long queues in the communities.
Maybe because they don't have a mouthpiece.
But in any case,
like
in the communities, it was easier to even get guarantors. Because that one you are home. Very easy for you to get guarantors.
You can only guarantee 5
auntie,
and then
your
you're
uncle,
done.
but in a household. But you're talking about thousands of students on the campuses and some making effort to even get other forms of ID to enable them register. So if you compare these apples to just mangoes because they are fruit, you will make mistakes. So I will go for that idea of opening it up at some limited centers. And I cannot, in my wildest of dreams, even project or talk the idea that an entire university population of 40,000, I mean, if not everybody will register. Giving them one center, then we are not serious about the exercise. Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, a university with over 30,000 population. You didn't even cite a center on the campus. That is outrageous.
But how did everybody miss that?
We didn't miss it. You complain, the Electoral Commission and the Commissioner will tell you they have the mandate, they know what they are doing, they don't take advice from external sources. They know what they are doing. They like it, they love it, they will do it. So it's not that everybody missed it. But I am surprised at the lack of consensus of the major political parties in pushing for these young Ghanaians who are eager to get themselves registered and get themselves on Ghana's electoral roll. I'm surprised that people are not pushing for them. Because if you say they are the future leaders of your country, they must be part of the decision-making process. Because you see, we are only part of, now you have seen some more years than us, but we are only part of today. Today belongs to the big boys in the system, but it's tomorrow that belongs to these future leaders. So if they were not part of the decision today, we are going to hand over to them, hand down a decision that policymakers might not have thought through, regardless of how they felt and all that. So how are they supposed to hold the pieces together when you are not there or when you are retired?
This one says, in the registration, we do not accept birth certificate, but rather we accept passport. But the birth certificate was used to process the passport. I don't know if it's true, is it?
Yeah, we do not accept birth certificate. The new CI. The CI, I think, is the driver's license, passport, and the national ID.
This is true. Well, this guy is saying that, but to get a passport, you need a birth certificate as your primary ID.
But if you straight that argument, even in processing the birth certificate, you need ink and paper as well. Maybe I think the birth certificate cannot be used as a form of national ID. In all due respect.
Isn't it a primary identification?
I have my doubt. There are people who do not even know where they were born. I hope you know that. Yeah. Because you can sit in Accra and get your birth certificate done for you in 24 hours.
From wherever.
From wherever. So I think that would be a bit. And also, it's also to make it watertight.
so that those who finally get themselves registered or enrolled on our electoral register are people you can say, oh, they use the right identification and all.
Jabba, you are the students.
And also, lastly, before Jabba comes in getting a birth certificate, you are not asked whether you are 18 and above, whether you're of sound mind, or whether necessarily you are a Ghanaian.
But your date of birth is on it.
Yeah, by your date of birth, but it doesn't show whether you're of sound mind or not. But for you to be able to cast a ballot, you should be 18
But your
and
passport
above.
won't say if you're of sound mind.
Yeah, but at least that one, you yourself, as you've presented yourself, then it's also important for the officer in charge.
No, but I could be seriously autistic.
Yeah,
still get a passport.
So somebody can challenge that as well.
But anyway, you didn't. As Sami keeps saying, the future. So as we're going into a future without a national ID, why aren't you agitating? When they come to the university, why don't you say, look, go and get us a national ID, we'll vote for you?
You know, it has become a political something, and we haven't really involved ourselves in the political.
No, should you have the numbers? Why aren't you
immediately you come out with a release of something that goes against the government, you'll be tagged a pro-MPP. If you are also in line with the government, you'll be tagged pro-NDC. So we mostly concentrate on student-based. National ID, yeah.
We help you to collect revenue.
You know, funny enough, I misplaced my voter's ID and I needed to guarantee for a couple of people in the queue. But unfortunately, because I wasn't having any ID on me, I couldn't guarantee for anyone. If I did my ID way back in Benkum Secondary School and I haven't received it yet.
I mean, what I'm saying that with the numbers you have, I mean, Legon alone 40,000. You see, I mean, you have the numbers. Why don't you conspire and say, listen, we have at least 3 things: national ID, this. You guys, this is what we need. I mean, they'll do it if you talk.
I do the politicians.
But they have the numbers.
That's the student movement.
Student movement.
Yeah.
No agitation.
They've been at the core of government transformation and policy transformation when it comes to student movement. So you're talking about France, talking about, you know,
the 21st century is 16 years old.
But it's basic.
We don't know who's Ghanaian and who's 18. And we are on national television. Somebody's even on YouTube watching us in America, and we are confessing that we can't even identify whether this guy is 18 or Ghanaian.
I approached a gentleman in the queue directly at Jubilee polling center. And funny enough, the guy looked a Nigerian. He just looked as just like a Nigerian. But upon the interaction with the guy, he was a Ghanaian. I just laughed at. But he was with his birth certificate as a basis of guaranteeing for someone, of which I had to explain the modalities of the entire process to him.
Sorry.
I know. Pardon by the mere fact that we don't have a national ID. You find it ridiculous. You find it backward. You find it an unfortunate situation. I look forward to PM Express one of these days asking the politicians, why don't you have a national ID?
Well, folks, all too soon, that's what time will allow us. But you know what? This conversation hasn't ended yet. It looks like one of those ones that's going to drag for a while. And anytime it comes up, we'll come and sit there and we'll discuss it. But I want to say thank you, Sami.
Maybe the political party should have a manifesto clearly stating what they will do with our national ID.
Can at least just identify a Ghanaian who is 18. Well, thank you very much for watching. Tomorrow we're back to do this all over again. Thanks and have a good evening.